All right, so what is like the most practical, simple way that you can become successful? You know, if you're anything like me, you've probably read some self-help books and personal development, watched a bunch of videos on YouTube, and there's a lot of great information out there, but it seems like most of it is focused on big picture, like here's how you should have a great mindset. And nobody really gets down into like, what do you actually do? How do you actually become more successful? They just kind of give you all it's like, you know, they gave you the potatoes, but they didn't give you the steak. Where's the meat? Where's the beef of this whole thing? And over the last 11 years, I've spent a ton of time both learning stuff and testing stuff, trying things out, trying to figure out like, what do I need to do? How do I need to act so that I can get everything I want out of life? Because let's be honest, life is pretty short. The older you get, the faster it goes, and we don't know how much time we have. You know, we can look and say, okay, well, the average lifespan is 75 years, but that doesn't mean you don't get hit by a car tomorrow. So how do you live in a way that you're the most successful you could possibly be? And the first of what I would say is like a 4-step process. The first of those steps is to actually define what success is for you. You know, and you need to do this both physically, like what things, what experiences, what stuff do you want? Look, we live in a physical world. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have things. You need to, first of all, define what are those things that you want to have in your life, the cars, the houses, the relationships, the kinds of, you know, communities and groups that you're part of. And the kinds of experiences you want to have, you know, places you want to go, things you want to try, hobbies you want to get into and become maybe even great at. And then you need to, you know, from defining it, you need to actually, like Charlie Munger calls it, assiduity. You need to get your ass in a chair and do it. And so I always tell people all the time, my coaching clients, I tell people that I'm talking to, like friends and family, if they're telling me they're having problems with stuff, the first thing I ask a lot of times is like, well, what have you written about it? As long as it's in your head, it's not real. Until you put it down on paper, it's not real. So when you have all these ideas, you know, I want this kind of car and this kind of home and this kind of thing, the second step of this is, you know, you need to have clarity, so you need to put all that stuff on paper, all of the things, all of the experiences. I use the 4 F's for this. You could use whatever you want, but I use the 4 F's. That's fitness, finance, family, and fulfillment. And I have them in that order on purpose, because if you don't have your fitness, none of the other 3 matter. If you don't have your fitness and your finances, you're not going to be fulfilled, first of all, and you're not going to be able to take care of your family. So they're in that order specifically. Also, if you don't have your fitness, your finances, and your family in order, you're not going to be fulfilled. So I use these 4 F's to do this, and I'll write all of the things I want. How do I want to feel physically? You know, how do I want to be able to move? How strong do I want to be? How big do I want to be? How lean do I want to be? You know, how do I want my energy levels to be? You know, how do I want my stress levels to be? How anxious do I actually want to be? And I get very clear. And some of these things, you know, a lot of people struggle with. The thing is, just use a scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do I want my energy levels to be like every day? Do I want to just be like firing on all cylinders? Or do I want to feel like shit every day? And, you know, maybe if you've lived a rather good life and you've never felt really terrible, and maybe let's say you've never even drank, so you've never had a hangover. You don't know what that feels like. I would recommend go eat like shit for a whole day and see how good you feel. You'd be tired, just like not good, right? So figure out what you want, write it down, and then you have to go one step, you know, further or one layer deeper, and you have to start asking better questions about those things. Like, let's say you want, we'll use some ridiculous examples just to make it really simple. Let's say you want to own a McLaren. Now, McLaren cars are anywhere from, you know, $1 to $10 million. They're very small production. They don't make like, you know, hundreds of thousands of them. They might make like 5,000 or 10,000 or something. There's not even that many, I don't think, in the world. Millions of dollars for this one car. So let's say you have this thing on your list. You have to go a step deeper and say, okay, well, what kind of person deserves to own that kind of car? And you might say, well, I have to be this kind of person or that or whatever. The simplest answer is, well, somebody who makes enough money to be able to afford that kind of car. And you say, okay, well, how much money would I need to be able to afford that car? And this questioning process, starting with what kind of person do I need to be to deserve that, this questioning process allows you to go deep enough into the layers to actually do the math that you need to do. You see, when it comes to being successful, first it's just about picking a target. Next, it's just about doing the math. So you might say, okay, well, how much money do I need to make? And maybe you go even smarter. Instead of figuring it out, you go on Google and you ask Google, how much money do I need to make to be able to afford a car payment? And you read a couple of articles. Or you might just look and say, okay, if I want to buy something worth $1 million, how much money per year should I be making in personal income? And this process, it sounds really silly to me to even have to say this, but this process can be taught to like 10-year-old kids. And they don't teach it in school, which is crazy to me. We live in this world. We go to school for, anywhere from like 15 to 25 years. And never once do they sit us down and teach us how to set goals, how to plan achieving those goals, and how to get what we want. And it's crazy because it's like everything in the world would work better if people were more clear about this stuff, right? Instead, 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Instead, like most people are in this situation that they have, Gen Z has $33,000 saved for retirement. That's not good. If you're going to live a great life and at some point you're going to want to be able to, be a grandparent and just hang out with your grandkids all the time and just travel the world, do all this cool stuff. If you're going to live that way one day, you're going to need money. So if the majority of people are failing on this, this is where step 3 comes in, and this is where step 3 becomes very, very, very important. Once you've decided, like Earl Nightingale said, the success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Once you've decided on what that worthy ideal is, then you need to go see what the opposite is. And unfortunately, there's so many people who will never live truly fulfilling lives. They'll never live out their ultimate potential. They'll never be rich. They'll never be physically in the best shape ever, forever. I know some people in their 80s, they're phenomenal shape, better than most people in their 20s. But the majority of people will never know what that's like. 50% of people who get married get divorced. So half the country doesn't know what it's like to have a good marriage. Most people never really do anything like bigger and better than themselves. There's people out there building schools for communities that have no money and no food and no water and all this stuff. And like they're helping and they're changing the world. And most people will never know what that's like. And so you need this third step after you've decided on what your worthy ideal is, the thing that you're going to become to deserve all those things that you want. That third step is to go out and see what most people are doing. Because another thing Earl Nightingale said that I thought was really clever, he said, if you don't know what to do, look at what everyone else is doing and do the opposite. Go out and look at people. Do they look happy? In fact, if you do some research, most studies suggest that on average, people become less happy the older they get. Doesn't that seem like it's backwards? If you know more, you're smarter, you're more capable, you're able to take care of yourself and you're able to take care of other people and do whatever the hell you want. Remember when you were a little kid and you just wanted to grow up so you could do what you wanted when you wanted to do it? If that's the case, why are people less happy the older they get? So the third step is so important because you have to see the world the way it is. Most people are so sucked into their damn phones that they don't even see the world they live in. They just see the stuff on Instagram. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Oh, it's so interesting. Their brains are getting like melted by this bullshit they see all the time because they don't see the real world. The majority of people are living lives that are like 1/1 millionth of their true potential. They're just sucked into their phones, living in imaginary land. They're not even living in the real world. And it's really sad. And if you're watching this video, you have to be smart enough to know that that is not going to lead you to the kind of life that you would really like to live. You have to be able to see what other people are doing and say, okay, if I eat really crappy foods, my health is going to decline. My health declines. I'm not going to be in as good of a mood to be able to spend time with my family. I'm not going to be able to do as much. When I'm older, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to go to the hospital a lot. Maybe I have diabetes or heart disease or any of these other problems. You have to be able to extrapolate out by looking at other people. You know, Richard Dawkins, in his book, The Selfish Gene, talked about this. He said one of the great things about being human beings, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that we can simulate the future without having to experience it ourselves. So you can look at these old people. They're overweight and they're limping, and you know they're always complaining. They don't feel good and they're tired and they don't have the energy they used to. Like, look, and you're like, wow. Like, I wonder what they've lived like. And then you might even go to their house. You might even have family like this. You go to their house and you see, okay, well, they're eating Kraft macaroni and cheese and canned chili and all these bad foods that are not good for them. They're eating all this bullshit. Of course they don't feel good. Whatever you put in is whatever you become. And that's the same for food. It's the same for what you see on social media, what you see in the news, what you allow into your household. You know, when you look at these things, you have to be intelligent enough to extrapolate out in your own life. If I do what the majority of people do, which is I don't take care of my health, I don't think about and take care of my finances, I don't think about and take care of my family and my fulfillment, you're going to get what most people get, which isn't very much. You know, I have people that ask me all the time, they're like, how do you have the discipline to get up at 3:30 in the morning and go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night? They're like, how do you do that? And I always say the same thing. It's like, that's how I get what I want. I get everything I want because I do the things that, first of all, other people won't do, but secondly, the things that I need to do to get what I want. If I want to make the kind of money I want to make, I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning. If I want to have the levels of fulfillment that I want to have, 3:30 in the morning. Great family, 3:30 in the morning. If I want to be in great physical shape, guess what? Get up at 3:30, fasted, drinking just a little bit of like yerba mate tea, and walking on my treadmill for a couple of hours while I start my workday. So you have to take, you know, your ability to simulate based off of other people's experiences seriously and use it. The next time you're at the grocery store, look at people. They're not even looking at the food they're putting in their carts. People don't even read the ingredient lists on these packaged foods. They don't have any clue that these red food dyes and all this other stuff, you know, increase estrogen. They don't understand that these things interfere with their brain's ability to focus effectively. They don't understand that some of these chemicals stay in your body forever. You can never get rid of them. They don't understand that a lot of the things that are in grocery stores aren't even real food. It's not even food. It's just stuff packaged up made to look like food that will add calories to their diet. That's cheap to produce. So you have to be smart enough to take those first two steps on your own to get clarity and to plan. And then the third step of looking at the real world, looking at how people actually live and what they actually do and why they're actually going to live less than the best lives they could possibly live. And you have to then take the next step, which is you need to find one person for each area of your life. One person for your fitness. Who looks, feels, acts physically the way you want to look, feel, and act. One person for your finances. Who financially lives the kind of life you want to live. You know, they have the kinds of experiences you want, the kinds of things you want. They have the freedom to move, to go around, to travel, do all these things. One person for family. You know, who is it that has the kind of family that you would kill 100 savages for? You know, you would go out and fight bare fist, just punching the hell out of other people, fighting hundreds of people to have that kind of family. And then fulfillment, like who is it out there that's living the kind of life that you look at and you're like, man, like they're so happy, they're fulfilled, they're a good person, they do the right things, they make the community better. Who are those people? You find those 4 people, you do everything those people tell you to do. Everything. At least in that area of life, right? The finance guy, maybe some of his other areas of his life aren't that great, but the financial stuff, you listen every single damn thing he says to you. Same thing with the other areas of your life. And look, I put together a course called the Infinite Breakthrough Course. I'm not going to pitch you guys on getting into this. I'm just going to let you know I go way more in depth. It's literally 20 days. It's like a boot camp for you to really get deep into each areas of your life, all of the psychological things that are going on inside of you, and how to very easily and effectively, first of all, turn your life around, get you on the right track, and get you into a point of life where you don't ever have to get stuck again. And I'm going to give you guys some of the content from this for free right now. But if you're looking for something more in depth, the link is in the description for this video below. But one of the things I do in the course, I'm going to explain this right now, is I get in depth into the 4 F's. Because it's not just your fitness. Your fitness is how you physically look, how you feel. You know, what's your energy levels? Like if you guys see, I talk really fast. I'm walking on a treadmill. I'm talking fast. I haven't eaten since 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It's 8 o'clock in the morning right now. So why is it that I've got all this energy and I'm physically in the best shape of my life, and it's been like 18 hours or 17 hours since I last ate? So fitness is, you know, how you look, how you feel. It's, you know, what's actually going on inside of you. If you're a man, like what are your testosterone levels looking like? You know, most men, their testosterone levels right now are the same level of 60-year-old men 30 years ago. 60-year-old men 30 years ago had healthier testosterone levels than most men do right now. So your fitness is really everything. When it comes to your finances, it's not just like how much money do you make or even how much money do you save. It's, you know, are you financially secure in the sense that you have money coming in from enough different places that, let's say you have, they call it streams of income, right? You have all these streams coming to you. If one of those dries up, is money still coming in? You know, something bad happens here. Do you still have other places that are going to help to keep you afloat? Look, the market goes up and down. If the market goes down, you only have one, that dries up, you're in a lot of trouble. It's also, you know, how are you investing your money to make it work for you so you're not always working for money? At some point in your life, you know, Robert Kiyosaki has a great book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he talks about, you know, I can't remember what it's called. It's something quadrant, and it's basically 4. It's like entrepreneur, employee, investor, something else, and self-employed. So, you know, where are you in that, and how are you moving yourself more into the investor quadrant where your money works for you instead of you working for money? It's also, you know, how much money are you able to contribute back to other communities? What else can you do to help other people? To give people experiences like they'd never have before with your family. You know, I told my fiance we went for Valentine's Day, we went skydiving. We went skydiving and then we went out to a really nice, comfortable like Turkish restaurant. We had great food afterwards. And she said to me after we left the skydiving and after we had our food, she said, "This has literally been the best day of my life." So what are you doing then with that money to then give people who are important to you the kinds of lives they'd never be able to have if it wasn't for you? And this isn't like an ego thing. It's like, what else are you going to do with your life? You know, if you just live for yourself all the time, at some point, you're going to feel like, wow, I'm missing something. Like, I feel like I wish I could give this to other people to feel as good as I feel or even better. You know, like, how do you take those things and then use them for your family? What kinds of relationships do you want to have? Do you want to have the kind of marriage that you guys just never talk and eventually get divorced? Or are you looking for like every day you're spending a certain amount of time together and you're doing interesting things together and learning together and working on stuff together, and maybe your kids are in sports and they're doing this, and that you're raising like, the next Elon Musk or something. Like your family then becomes this project where you're able to see like, wow, like their lives are better because of me. They're also like going to make their own family's lives better because I took the time to really think through this, and our family as a whole will be able to make our community better, and you're able to see the ripples move out from your family. The reason why I think it's so challenging for so many people to live a really great life is because nobody ever just sat you down. I know nobody did this for me, and why the hell not? This isn't fucking rocket science. What I'm saying right now is so simple. Just decide on this stuff. Just think through it a little bit. Write this shit down. It's so crazy to me that this hasn't been like just part of normal life for everyone. I could teach my 10-year-old son this. I've talked to him about these things over and over and over again. When it comes to your fulfillment, why is it that most people become less happy the older they get? That is pretty ass backwards. And if you don't believe me, the next time you're at a family gathering, just sit quietly, don't talk to anyone, and just look around. Who are the happiest people in the rooms? Little kids. And the craziest thing, little kids are usually doing totally stupid, unimportant things, and they're living the best lives ever. I mean, they're just having an amazing time. So when it comes to your own fulfillment, you have to start thinking through. One of the reasons why it's easy for me to get up at like 3:30 in the morning isn't because like I want to be up when it's dark and nobody else is awake. I mean, to be fair, like I do like having some peace and quiet when I first wake up, but part of the reason that it's easy for me is because I can get up, I can meditate, and I can feel like I'm doing something good. Like I'm like, wow, I'm making progress. Getting up early, putting the work in, getting a head start on the day. Feel like I'm already moving before the sun comes up, and I get a lot of fulfillment just out of getting up and doing my thing in the morning, having a little peace and quiet and making some progress. And then I have my day structured out that I'm doing almost everything I want to do every day. I love really simple things. And if you think about this enough, most people do. I like to work out at the gym. Maybe you don't like working out at the gym. Maybe you like to run or play soccer or something else. Just build it into your life. And, at the same time, when you figure out your own fulfillment stuff, the next level of that is your family's fulfillment. The next level of that is, how are you helping your community? There's hospitals out there like Shriners Hospital. They run completely on donations. They don't have a billing department. You could donate like $20 a month. Let's say you don't have a lot of money, $20 a month. Every year, that you're buying some kind of medical supplies, some kind of care for little kids that, their families don't have the money to pay for the treatment they need. Little kids that have cancer. So there's always something you can do. There's always something. And I would recommend, when it comes to the 4 F's, get as clear as possible. When you're writing stuff down, write it all down. I've done this multiple times over the last 11 years, where I literally will sit down with a pen and a piece of paper for like an hour and write out everything. Cars, houses, like cleaning. Like I like to have a lot of health-related stuff. I've got like a red light here, my treadmill desk. I'm like, I'd like to have like a cryo tank, and I'd like to have a sauna and a cold plunge, and I like to have this thing and this other thing where you could breathe like super oxygenated air and do all this. And like, I'm putting all this stuff on my list. I'm like writing, it's like I'm writing like a just insane person, because I don't want to miss any of it. I want to get it all on the list. And look, the cool thing about this process, this 4-step process, is it's simple. It's simple. All you have to do is get clear. And the cool thing about this is when you write down all of the things you could ever imagine wanting to have, you're going to find out that you probably only have 5 to 10 years worth of stuff to do. You still have 90% of your life to live, which means you can dream 100 times bigger than you're currently dreaming and still probably have enough time. Now, obviously, if you live to be 75, an average lifespan, that's what we're talking about. If you get hit by a car tomorrow, I'm sorry, there's nothing you could do. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan. It's kind of like, I think Benjamin Franklin said, like, people who are people who fail to plan are planning to fail. Like, that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan because maybe tomorrow I get hit by a car. Well, what if you don't? What if you live to be 75? What if you live to be 100 and you didn't plan? Imagine how bad things are going to get then. So I always think, plan for the longest term that you could possibly imagine, but don't live in a way that you're waiting for everything until then. A big part of the reason why I make the kind of money I make and I work in the work that I do is because it gives me the lifestyle I want. I like to be able to travel, but I don't want to have to take off work to do it. Like when I travel, I don't have that much stuff to do. Maybe 1 day or 2 days that I'm like, I want the whole day to do like certain things, but like I don't need an entire week to do this stuff. After like 2 days, I'm just bored. So I do things in a way that I can have it both ways. And you might have to think through, what is the ideal lifestyle for me? Am I traveling a lot? Am I traveling a little? I find for myself, like every 3 months or so is good. After that, I want to be home. I like having my routine at home. You have to figure this stuff out. You got to get clear on it. You got to write it down. And then you need to look at both sides. Who is it that doesn't get what they want? The majority of people. What are the majority of people doing? Well, they're not making enough money from enough places. They're not investing enough money for their retirement. They're not doing things that make them happy and feel fulfilled. So you start looking at what people are doing wrong, and then you find the people that are doing things the right way, and you do what they tell you to do. And I remember, this is probably 8 years ago, I remember hearing this speaker, Eric Thomas, say over and over and over again, multiple times. There's a motivational compilation video on YouTube. I would listen to it while I was working out in the morning. And he said, all of my millionaire friends get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I heard it over and over. And then one day I said, you know what? What if that's all it took? What if all I had to do to get everything I wanted out of life was to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Would I be willing to do it? I said, well, if that's all it took, yeah, I could do that. I mean, maybe it would suck, but I could do it. That's just one thing. And if you take that mentality, when you get mentors, when they tell you, hey, you need to find a way to invest 40% of your income every single month. And you say, I don't know if I could do that. You have to ask yourself, if that's all it took, could I do it? Could I find a way? Would I make it happen? And if it's one thing, you're like, wow, it's just one thing. You have to have the right kind of mindset. And that's why all these like videos on YouTube and all these books and everything is good stuff, because it gives you the right mindset. But then you have to take it through a practical process of literally just goal setting. Like all you're doing is setting a goal, planning on how to achieve it, finding out what people are doing that aren't achieving their goals, and then finding out what people who are getting what they want do, not doing what those people do, and doing what the successful people do. But here's the last point I want to make on this, and this is so important to anybody who is trying to be successful in life across all 4 of the F's. The most important thing you can do is to have clarity and to be absolutely committed. To say, hey, look, this is the best I could come up with. And maybe it's not even that good. Like, let's be honest, most of us aren't that smart. The majority of people are not that smart. It's true. Look at like the average IQ, I think is like 100. I don't even think it's that. I think it might be like 90 if you factor in every country in the world, or even lower than that. So like you might not come up with something that you're like, I'm going to cure cancer, and you have a plan for doing it. But you can come up with something that is meaningful and fulfilling for you. And you have to come up, first of all, with the best possible outcome. You need to be very clear, and you need to be absolutely committed. When that alarm clock goes off, you need to get your ass out of bed. And if you struggle getting up early in the morning, look, there's a couple of things you should consider. First of all, you should thank God that you even woke up. 3 million people die every day in America. 3 million people. 3 million people don't wake up. So thank God that you even woke up. And secondly, you need to remind yourself that you're committed. You want everything that you want, and you're going to do the little things. Oh my God, it's so hard. I have to get up early in the morning. How old are you, 10? I mean, come on. Just get up. Just get up. And you don't have to do 3. You could do 4. You could do 5. Shit, Oprah gets up at 6. At least get on Oprah's level. I mean, she did pretty well getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So be absolutely committed. It's so important that you take this serious, because the thing is, if you don't take your goals serious, who's going to? Somebody else can't take it serious for you. You have to be absolutely committed. So get the clarity by going through this process, put a plan in place, figure out what it's going to take, and make it happen.